Welcome to One Day in Transformation, the podcast where we explore how digital and sustainable transformation aren't just buzzwords, but the twin engines of future-proof businesses. Today we have a very special guest, Daniel Scholz, co-founder of Footprint Intelligence. Originally, we had planned to welcome both Daniel and his co-founder, Sebastian Gier. Unfortunately, Sebastian had to cancel due to illness, and we wish him a very speedy recovery. Daniel's background, he comes from BMW sustainability and AI innovation. He's the guy who turned corporate strategy into actionable tech. At Footprint Intelligence, Daniel and his team have built a platform that automates 70% of ESG reporting, so companies can stop drowning in spreadsheets and start using data to drive real change. Daniel, welcome to the show. We are thrilled having you here today.
It's being here, and thanks for the kind words.
Before we dive into Footprint Intelligence, I would love to hear what's the story behind your partnership with Sebastian. You came from BMW's corporate world, while Sebastian is design thinker. How did you end up co-founding a startup together? And what is the one thing you have learned about each other that's made this work?
Thanks, Antea, for the question, and I'm happy to dive into the topic a little bit further. Initially, we didn't plan at all running or operating a SaaS platform as we do today, Footprint Intelligence, which is in the space of sustainability reporting, ESG reporting, and improvement for corporation. Initially, it was just a side kick. Sebastian and I, we met at BMW. We both have been at different departments. Me, myself, I was in the department of innovation management with the focus of sustainability back then. Sebastian was in the design space, also focusing on digital experience in sustainability. And this is where we kind of met on a project together. That was kind of the birth moment, the starting point. And at a certain point in time, we sat together after work, and we were wondering why certain processes are actually that complicated, why there is so limited impact, whereas it's actually not so complicated to know what to do. And why are actually decisions so hard in corporations to get through, especially in the space of sustainability and where we have quite a high awareness also in certain organizations and quite a high readiness to do something, though the individual decisions are quite tough to get through. And this is why we started a side project back then. We had a really good boss, which allowed us to, respectively, by the way, different bosses, but we had really good bosses which allowed us to do something on the side, which was definitely possible. And at a certain point in time, this was not just a little thing on the side, but kind of every day after work, every weekend, we're just kind of off and building a small product back then, coding, designing, testing. And at a certain point in time, we found first people interested. We worked with a climate consultancy then, and we found the first companies interested in what we are building, and then the first client. And at a certain point in time, we said, okay, let's focus on that. This is what we want to do. This was a time in which COVID was still at its high. The Ukraine war just started. So everything but secure times, I would say. We nevertheless decided to do that, to kind of go this step, quit our day jobs, and focus fully on Footprint Intelligence back then.
Thanks for sharing this amazing story. I think it's so cool when people start something completely new. So yeah, it's nice.
And kudos to your bosses at BMW. I mean, just allowing you building something in addition that's not the typical thing, particularly in corporates. But jumping one step back, you just already explained the background of Sebastian in product design and in UX and UI things. You're super deep in sustainability and in data and AI things. How do those perspectives clash, or do they even complement when building a product like Footprint Intelligence?
I think they constantly clash, indeed. Not in a negative way. It's not a clash in which you can imagine a fight or something, but a clash in which you have different interests and perspectives kind of coming together. And over the years, I have to say now, by now we really work together since quite a while, but over the years, this also improved a lot in the collaboration and kind of seeing each other's strength and the perspective of the respective other part as an advantage. That was very much the beginning. Right now, it's more or less Sebastian runs a lot, which has to do a lot with the initial customer contact and the product design, whereas I'm running the team which is responsible for building the product and developing the product in a tech way. So we always say these are kind of two different perspectives kind of coming together, and it's something like a convergence of different interests, like the tech and the research interest, also related to what the regulation, for example, actually demands, versus the user interest, how it is easiest for the users, and what would be the best and easiest way to navigate. And I think with this constant, I would say constant slight clash, a good product is built, I believe, and a good user experience overall is kind of created in the long run.
Right. Sounds like a very good addition to each other and a very good combination of two things.
Exactly. Let's dive deeper in footprint intelligence. So your tool automates ESG reporting, something most companies still do manually. What is the biggest misconception you hear from executives about ESG data, and how do you address it?
Yeah. I'm always careful with the term automate because there are many processes which can be automated. Starting with one slight first misconception, maybe, but it's really not about replacing a human completely, rather than making processes more effective and cutting down the time in certain aspects. Because I believe no company really wants to report something which is like a black box, and then they don't even know what's kind of inside and how they got to this conclusion, for example, or these results. So it's very much also a way of automation which allows still to trace and track what's happening in between, and not just having this black box. So I think this is maybe one slight misconception. Another one is, and especially as you're mentioning, management and C-level, it's less work than you think. And additionally, the benefits are much more than one might think. I believe if addressed in the right way, if channeled in the right way, one can really achieve results in a very short time and really get to the first, let's say, low-hanging fruits in a way, in much less effort than you might initially expect. While the benefits of such data and insights is really oftentimes a starting point and a really good milestone to get to really new areas and new insights and benefits for an organization, which are oftentimes not kind of in the head of especially management and C-level.
So if I get that right, and something I would definitely agree on is the reporting aspect and the outcome is more just a side effect, an additional side effect, but not the main target. So the initial target of what you are doing and how you're supporting things with your tooling is to create transparency, right?
Yep, absolutely. And I know this podcast is very much about transformation. And now you're mentioning transparency. I believe transparency is really one cornerstone of transformation, and oftentimes maybe really also the first step. If you have transparency, or in other word, kind of certain clear sight, you're able to transform, and you are able to also know in which way or in which direction you want to transform, which is absolutely needed to kind of initiate the next step. So I definitely agree with you on that.
You're like us, based in Munich in Germany, and your clients on the other side are completely global. So how do you balance local compliance needs? And if you take Germany as example, we are known for super strict laws with global scalability and all the variety of different laws which are all over. And since we're all about twin transformation, how does a platform bridge the gap between such kind of digital toolings and sustainability goals?
Mm. Yeah, there is certain national regulation. On the other hand, especially in Europe, in the last year, we all experienced that in various ways. But there was the attempt in Europe, at least, for quite large standardization also in regards to the regulatory aspects, um, which has really also big advantages in theory if we do it in a right way, because suddenly stuff gets also comparable across different regional areas and countries. How do we balance? I think it it comes naturally with larger clients which have international, regionally differently, or regional different requirements, but also clients from different regions which have always certain aspects. And I think the challenge as a software provider is now to have the required standardization on the one side, but on the other hand, the possibilities to also customize and adjust in regards to regional differences. And in a way, I think that overarching makes a product potentially even better, because it kind of has to integrate maybe certain aspects from different regions which are good, which can then be generalized, and the aspects which are maybe, questionable could be rather a part which is customizable for the respective regions. Talking now very abstract, but I think this could potentially explain how we address that challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Just out of curiosity, did you see any change within 2025 in regard of regional interest? So is there a raise or a decrease in certain areas of Europe or the world in regard of your clients or potential clients?
Yeah, I think generally last year we initially everybody was getting ready for the CSRD regulation, and last year was a year of a lot of uncertainty, and the EU and the guys in Brussels didn't really come to a conclusion whether they do it this way or this way. So this created a lot of uncertainty last year, which definitely shifted the direction of organizations from what we experienced a lot. And there also regionally, it was definitely different, even though it was, yeah, it's tough to now from the top of my head see certain patterns directly regional wise. But for sure, what we realized last year is that many organizations focused more on the aspects which they were more certain about due to all this uncertainty. For example, a lot of organizations said regulation can be changing, but what's certain is we have a climate problem on this planet. So let's focus on climate aspects. Let's focus on automated carbon accounting, for example. Let's focus on how can we actually improve decarbonization pathways, decarbonization strategies. Let's focus on product carbon footprints, advantages I could, for example, offer to my clients, depending on the industry. But this definitely has also business benefits, being able to effectively assess your product carbon footprint and communicate that to clients, and such aspects, for example. And there definitely we realize patterns and changes. Yeah, our client base right now is mostly European based, but also, for example, as you mentioned, the regional aspects, we saw changes in the Middle East, which is also a region where awareness is increasing. And especially after the COPs, I think there is quite a high readiness right now to actually do something and kind of deliver after all these large conferences within their regions. So I think also such regions are not to be underestimated. Similar also to regions like China, which kind of introduce also sustainability regulations quite rigorously. So
So we might see Twin Intelligence Dubai quite next.
Who knows? Who knows?
If you open an office there, just please let us know. We're the first ones to visit you.
But thanks for sharing this good news. That's really nice. Okay, so you went from BMW's corporate innovation to startup life. What's been the hardest adjustment, and what's one thing you miss about big company resources?
I had back then a really cool team, I have to say, and also the topics were quite exciting. I was working on. You always within such an organization, it's quite hard to change anything. But once changed, of course, even a small thing, the impact is quite large because such an organization is quite like, I don't know, if you change something minimal in a product, for example, and this is now multiplied over thousands of products all over the world, this would have a potential huge benefit already. Being in such an organization definitely has also quite advantages, I would say. Whereas right now, of course, you have much more autonomy and potential degrees of freedom, I would say, in regards how we as a team are developing, in which directions we are going, in which new features are coming up, which new innovations we are integrating. Do we focus more on this part of AI or rather on this part? Like, where do we achieve the highest user value compared to its to the effort involved? So there's a lot of, let's say, decisions taken on a daily basis, which also come with a lot of responsibility on the other hand, because you really are responsible for your actions. And that is also quite a nice thing, I believe. Like, you have a certain hypothesis, you follow up on it, you can implement it, and then we hope it's also delivering in terms of customers like what they see. It maybe attracts even potentially another target group or whatever you're kind of working on. You see directly the impact, and I think this is a pretty cool aspect also of a smaller organization, which is quite fast also in terms of development and adaptation in that regard. I believe it's always a really big benefit to know both sides and the advantages of both sides, because in the end, we are still working with larger organizations, which, for example, have longer decision cycles, which also has its value in a certain way, because you can have more time to kind of see pros and cons and take the best decision. Whereas in a small organization, you rather take a decision and see, is it working or not? And then you iterate. And I think both has its pros and cons for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So now I'm curious, what's one kind of aha moment you have had about how big companies versus startups approach sustainability? And since we're recording this at the very beginning of 2026, what's your prediction for this year in ESG tech?
An aha moment is that it's really tough to generalize, but I believe the reason why is very, very much different. So in small organizations, and I include, for example, the German Mittelstand, like SMEs in the segment, they are oftentimes quite more pragmatic, and they say basically, right now, what's my benefit out of whatever initiative you're looking at? Let's say introducing an AI platform which automizes my sustainability. What's my benefit directly? Whereas in larger organizations, this question is sometimes not even a topic anymore. So it feels like certain directions are already kind of clear, and then it's much more about, like what can I do else with it? For example, what additional benefits beyond the core functionality could I achieve with it? So just looking at one example, like a smaller or a medium-sized company might say, well, if I introduce that now, how much time can I save? And what is the benefit? Like, for example, my clients are demanding certain standards like EcoVadis or CDP. Like, how much better would I be in it? And could I use it to differentiate myself? And absolutely, they can, obviously. That's why many companies do that and use it. Oftentimes, you mentioned the twin transformation earlier, Rainer, use it directly to, as they're introducing anyway something new, they introduce something which leverages AI and also newest technology to really be state of the art and have digital processes which are new from the very beginning. So this is, I think, quite smart also from their perspectives to ask such questions and to follow up on them in such a way. Whereas large organizations, I feel it's oftentimes a larger process to, for example, decide on a certain measure, be it an introduction of a sustainability software, but it can also be a certain implementation measure for which helps them to reach their climate goals. And oftentimes, mindset-wise, these organizations ask less the question, why do we have to do that, rather than, okay, what else can we do with it? Like what might be additional benefits to the organization? Could we track something additionally with it? Could we maybe optimize other processes as well with that? And what else beyond the core? The core seems oftentimes clear already. So this is maybe one difference to answer the first part of the question. Antea, thanks for asking that. And the other question was, what are my predictions for 2026, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
I believe 2026 will be a good year in regards to sustainability. I think last year was quite challenging due to various aspects. I mean, we're having war nowadays. We're having a lot of political tensions. We're having a lot of other risks, maybe a economic crisis in Europe or Germany, which is keeping a lot of organizations busy. I believe a lot of things might, like my personal outlook is quite positive in many aspects for 2026. I think the mood might change to the positive. We kind of might realize bit by bit more and more that crisis and challenges are not going away, and we need to kind of live with it and work with it on a constant basis, and take this uncertainty as granted to a certain degree. I also believe that the benefits of sustainability might become more clear, more transparent to organizations. And we must really, I think all of us also working in that space must work on that actively to really tie sustainability and business benefits closer together.
Yeah,
And this was, by the way, also how footprint intelligence started out. It was always kind of beyond reporting, and how can we really create strategic business benefits with sustainability and kind of help organizations in not just one dimension.
right.
And I think this is maybe one other trend which we might see more and more in 2026. And last but not least, technological wise, I think the last years were absolutely the AI hype, and everybody was working in AI and around AI. But I feel we were lacking so far in kind of actually putting that to use in a productive way. So it was just AI for the matter of AI, and not how does it actually help us? Like, what can we do with it now? Like, what's the return of investment of AI? And then if everybody is just working a little bit on AI and deploying a model and, I don't know, connecting some APIs, it's also not efficient, I think, in a way. So I believe we should really clearly focus on or working out where it actually helps us. And then kind of maybe also trust here a little bit on the specialists, let's say the people working in this specific domain and having put or putting AI to use in a specific way. And then it also creates efficiencies and makes it less expensive, not just in cost, but also in, for example, carbon footprint in a way. So I think this is maybe another trend which we might see in 2026. I hope for it at least.
And I fully agree.
Mm.
I think we're in the age of industrializing AI and industrializing in a way to make it really useful and productive and recognize limitations and get away from hype towards a real industrial use of AI and capabilities. And I absolutely agree.
Absolutely. Okay, so it's time for our tradition. So, what is one song you would like to add to our playlist? And since Sebastian isn't here today, we'll have to skip his pick, but maybe you can share a song that reminds you of your partnership.
Such a tricky
Difficult
question,
one.
I'm telling you.
No worries. Maybe it's just radio you're listening to, or you don't even have time for listening to music because you're so super busy with.
Or maybe you
driving.
can also suggest a podcast or something.
I'm definitely suggesting a podcast which is from two people I know quite well, sitting also in this digital room. Highly recommend. And
Thank you.
song-wise, just to also answer the other question, really the Christmas songs are still so much stuck in my head.
Nice.
I kind of try to get them out, and I wish it also to all the people listening to this. So I might not call any name right now, but yeah, it's still very much present also in my head.
No more dreaming of a white Christmas. And as we are recording right now, it's snowing here in Munich. So to all the listeners, it would be white Christmas if it would have been 3 weeks earlier or 2. But now the Christmas is over, and now get the Christmas songs out of the head. But let's just jump to another question, Daniel. Germany is known quite well, and even more from an automotive perspective, for engineering precision. And I mean, BMW, where I've been working before, builds one of the most precise cars without any doubt. But yet many companies here still treat ESG as a nice to have. And from your perspective, what's the biggest cultural blocker you see in German-speaking companies or here in Europe? And how do you convince them that automation isn't just about compliance, but a competitive edge?
So I think culture-wise, one thing very much in the German culture I feel is this engineering part of doing things correct. And oftentimes this leads to, also in ESG, to really, once we do it, we want to do it very properly and accurate, which is very good because there's also a lot of inaccurate bullshit out there. So this is definitely a good aspect of it. But it sometimes also leads to not focusing on the most material, most impactful aspects and focusing on everything and wanting to do everything very granularly, which leads then to inaction oftentimes, or so much time consumed by, let's say, the most, I don't know, 0.01% of KPIs collection, so that there is no more time remaining for impactful decisions and, for example, working on improving these KPIs, which we try to get data for. And I think this is one challenge we are as like with the German culture, we might face also oftentimes in organizations, in which we really have to try to find maybe not workarounds, but rather use our strength of doing everything very accurately to do so for the big impacts, for the large contributors, do those accurately, and then also have enough time to improve. I think this is one aspect.
So less 120%, but maybe a bit more 80-20.
Sometimes, yeah. I think sometimes a little bit more of the startup vibe, I think, is not so bad in certain aspects. Whereas I think the ambition of having accurate results is very, very good, because there is a lot of bullshit out there. And then in the end, taking the wrong decisions would be even worse, right? To have kind of wrong data and wrong insights and then being misled, that nobody wants. So I think here actually the German culture and the engineering approach is really good also for the topic of ESG, because it's important. And if it's wrong, it might be greenwashing. So it's really important to have this accurateness. But we shouldn't forget to do the last step and reserve enough resources and time also for kind of improving status quo. So I think this is one challenge. You also mentioned that companies might be seeing it all only as a compliancy aspect, and not so much seeing also additional advantages, right, Rana? Which is not also quite a tough challenge, I guess, or I see. But I think more and more, especially right now, this is what I mentioned earlier, is the search for additional business benefits is I think getting bigger. And this is also what we realized in the last month or in the last year, kind of, that, okay, how can we kind of embed sustainability further into our core business, and how can we automate, for example, with AI, processes which take the time of our workforce, and then rather focus on, for example, business benefits. Like, let's say, what would my customers say if I really have certain measures implemented? Like larger customers or larger B2B clients oftentimes nowadays ask for certain ESG and sustainability data from their suppliers. So if they see here progress and see here that the company is really doing stuff and improving stuff, so this might be already a good sign in the right direction.
Right.
If they, for example, purchase certain products, let's use an engineering company, they are purchasing products of another supplier, and they have to report a product carbon footprint on it. And this one is improving, and maybe not only in its production, but also in the use phase, right? The use phase is kind of the next phase, which the client, which is kind of purchasing this product, is definitely happy about, because their product is improving.
Yeah.
And also in that aspect, I think there are many benefits. And then last but not least, we should not forget that, for example, renewable energy in organizations is by now really a no-brainer oftentimes, because it's cheaper and it's more reliable compared to, for example, I don't know, like I think 1.5 years now it's back, where we had a gas shortage or an oil shortage, etc. Nobody knew exactly. And if you set up renewables in a good way, this could really, or for example, as an organization, self-produce renewables. This is really like it's just coming from the sun. It's free, so let's make use of it.
Yeah,
Just a
making
couple
you
of examples.
independent. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Like
Okay,
mitigating
well,
risk and saving costs at the same time. Of course, it always depends, and there are many circumstances where it's not the case exactly, but generally speaking, I think there are many benefits.
Absolutely. 100%.
okay, Daniel, let's be a bit more creative. So if you could take one policy to the EU tomorrow, something that would accelerate sustainable tech, what would it be? So no limits, just go free.
Policy accelerating sustainable tech, you said?
Or sustainability in general, yeah. Could be both.
And the policy from politicians, you mean?
Could be policy for politicians. So to the European Union, so we have a good contact maybe to Ms. von der Leyen, and you can directly give her a call and say, well, Ursula, if you do that by tomorrow, then the world will be.
Yeah, this is what you meant, right? Or did you because you said policy, I was quickly confused. Or is it like a rule for organizations, let's say?
Can be a rule as well. Yeah, whatever
Or
comes to your mind.
I believe the hurdles put in place in regards to politics for small organizations in the very beginning is quite high. And I think starting here and kind of easing the way especially in Germany, this huge bureaucracy, for example, starting up a business and then launching a tech product, it is so high that I think addressing that or giving further support in the very, very beginning and sparking more entrepreneurship and going these steps, I think this can absolutely help. Also a country like Germany, especially, because I think there are many smart brains around, but the ones really taking the decision and kind of starting up something without being looked at in a weird way, this is way too less. And I think creating policies which kind of help in the very initial stage could, for example, be, I don't know, tax exceptions for the first year for newly created businesses. Super simple, actually. They are most likely not gaining any money anyways, so why not incentivizing that with smaller businesses, and they just don't have all this hassle of accounting and taxation and everything, and kind of like just make it a little bit easier to start something in the very beginning. I think this is a policy which definitely could help.
I very much like that. And by the way, Ursula, if you're listening, you can always reach out to get a bit more insights, and you're interested probably in how that can be realized. Just let us know. We have a couple of good examples of how that could happen.
Yeah, I would have more ideas here if she's on the line.
Direct line to Ursula von der Leyen might be a good idea, or Antonio Guterres or somebody else. So we ask all of our guests something which is the one small actionable tip our listeners could try this week. Last week, we've had Angelo, and ciao to Italy, to Roma, who gave us two suggestions. He recommended a morning track boxing to boost our concentration and experimenting with local AI tools like LM Studio or Misty or something else. And we've tried both, and it's a great way to analyze your own data securely without relying on cloud. And yeah, well, that morning boxing thing, in all honesty, we have to still do more, but well, it definitely something. But now we are excited definitely to hear your ideas and what would be your tip for this week for the two of us, for Antje and myself, to try out, but as well to our listeners who could try that.
So it for sure must be something sustainable.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, if you're recommending to, I don't know, pump a liter of oil each day, well, I would doubt that probably most of us but
No. The year just started, so we want to be on the right path, and I believe I want to suggest something fairly easy. I don't know how it is for you, but no matter when I tell anyone I work in the space of sustainability, I oftentimes get a reaction which is quite like a guilty, I would say. People are, I don't know, looking at me in a guilty way and saying, oh my God, I came to work with a car this morning, or I flew last week, or I ate meat today, or I don't know, whatever comes up. But this happens to me so often. And I always feel a little bit sorry actually for that, because the topic in itself is actually very positive. And I think everybody of us is contributing something quite positively in many ways, no matter what, but we still have this guilty feeling when sustainability pops in many's minds, which is unfortunate, I feel. So I think one very small tip or practice we could kind of try to live more consciously about that and just be positive and see what positive aspects did we do today or last week or whenever. Just recalling that and thinking about the positive aspects is maybe something quite easy, however, with not a small effect, because it gives the whole topic a different twist, I guess.
Really like that. I mean, it might not be as easy as you think, because Germans do have the tendency. So all of you listening outside of Germany, Germans are typically glass half empty, and we most tend to be very negative in everything we do. So therefore, that positivity might be easier if you're listening now to us from the US or elsewhere. But yeah, absolutely, I love that. Definitely, thank you for that. We'll try it out, and we'll tell in our podcast next week, in our next episode, how it went out.
Cool.
Finally, so last question. What is the one thing giving you hope right now? So not the tech will save us cliche, but a real tangible example from your work or the world or something private you want to share?
Podcast is about transformation, and we didn't even talk much about transformation, but I think transformation is so much related to psychology and everybody's perception of the world and what everybody is kind of driving and doing on a daily basis. And I think this is also what gives me hope in a way, because there is a lot of negativity and shit out there. However, if you look at individual people, you oftentimes really see outstanding examples of impact and people really driven. And I don't even want to call out anybody on a very high level, which might be famous or something. I'm talking about the small examples which you see on a day-to-day basis, which is really absolutely stunning what people are kind of driving forward and how relentlessly motivated various people are and driving things forward, oftentimes not even that visible, and oftentimes also in the second line, let's say, from what you might see and perceive. But there are people out there who really drive so much impact, and also you mostly talked about sustainability, really drive a lot of sustainable impact. And these are really people like anyone, and I think anyone has levers to really drive big topics. And this gives me a lot of hope, because even though if politicians are going mad and there are wars out there, I think it's still about the people who are kind of really driving amazing things on a daily basis.
Absolutely, fully agreed. So, Antea, after this amazing chat with Daniel, and thanks again for being so open-minded and straightforward
And
with
so
us.
positive.
Absolutely. I got so many ideas what we could do now tomorrow. We should, or maybe we could automate our own Heartprints ESG reporting with super intelligence. Maybe we start a spreadsheet liberation front to free all the companies from Excel hell.
Yes.
Or maybe we just convince every CFO in Germany sustainability data is the new oil.
Mm-hmm. The same thing we do every day, Rainer, trying to take over the world, or at least help Daniel turning ESG from a chore into a competitive weapon. Remind everyone that twin transformation starts with data, and maybe, just maybe, finally merge Heartprint and Footprint into one unstoppable force.
Absolutely. We think, we reimagine, and we transform
One day in transformation, where we talk about the future like it's ours to build. Daniel, thanks. It was really amazing.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you for the invitation, and it was a great chat. Thanks for all the good questions, and anytime again.
Thank you very much.